My name is Emily Carter. I am 42 years old and I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. Most people here know me as the woman with the perfect porch, the good hair, the always there smile. But for 16 years, I wasn't really me. I was Brian Carter's wife. We got married young. I was 26, still working as a paralegal at a small family law firm. I loved the order of it, the way things fit into folders, the small wins in court. Brian was charming, ambitious, already climbing the ladder in a tech consulting firm. He had plans, big ones. I remember the way he looked at me then, like I was the piece that made everything fall into place. After Caleb was born, I stayed home. At first, it was temporary, just until he turned 2, but then Brian's career took off. He was making $120,000 a year by the time he was 34. Then $180,000. He said we didn't need 2 incomes. Said daycare was too expensive. Said he needed me to make sure everything was taken care of at home so he could focus on building our future. And I agreed. I always agreed. We moved into a 4-bedroom house with stone accents and an open-concept kitchen. The mortgage was $2,950 a month. He handled the finances. I made sure the fridge was stocked, Caleb made it to baseball practice, and the house was spotless when his colleagues came over. I learned to cook roast chicken with rosemary. I learned how to schedule carpet cleanings and how to host Thanksgiving for 14 people without breaking down in the bathroom. His mother once told me during one of those dinners, "You're the glue. He's the one out there making it all happen, but you're what holds it together." I smiled. I always smiled. But inside I wondered why I felt so invisible if I was so essential. There were moments, quiet ones, when I would sit in the laundry room folding shirts and think, is this it? Is this who I am now? A shadow behind someone else's spotlight. Brian never said I wasn't enough. Not directly. But it was in the way he introduced me. "This is Emily. She stays home." It was in the way he interrupted me when I spoke. It was in the way decisions were made about vacations, money, Caleb's schooling, and I found out after the fact. My friends used to ask me if I missed working. I'd shrug, say something like, "It's just not the right time." But the truth was, I didn't know if I even remembered how to want things for myself anymore. I wasn't Emily the curious, ambitious, slightly stubborn girl who got A's in law school. I was Emily the wife. Emily the mom. Emily who made sure there were 3 kinds of cheeses on the charcuterie board because Brian's boss liked options. And when things got hard, when Caleb started pulling away, when Brian traveled more, when I saw the way he looked at his phone and smiled, I didn't ask questions. I swallowed them like bitter pills, because I didn't want to seem paranoid, or difficult, or dramatic. God, how many times had that word been used against me in silence? People thought we had it all. Big house, nice car. Brian drove a Tesla. I had a Honda Pilot. We had a college fund with $35,000 saved for Caleb. On paper it looks solid, but sometimes you can't see the rot until the walls start to crack. I remember once, after another one of his late-night returns from a so-called client dinner, I asked him if he was happy. He didn't look up from his phone. He said, "I'm tired. Can we talk about this tomorrow?" Tomorrow never came. And now, looking back, I wonder, how many women are living like I was? Half awake, half seen, holding the pieces of someone else's dream while theirs quietly crumbles in the background. Have you ever lost yourself so slowly that you didn't notice until you were already gone? I always thought heartbreak would come in silence, a slow fade, a door closing gently in the distance. But mine arrived under a canopy of fairy lights, with a string quartet playing Vivaldi in front of 187 guests sipping champagne and clapping politely. It happened at my brother's wedding. Jacob, my younger brother by 3 years, was getting married to a woman named Lauren Tate. She came from money, old Charlotte money, the kind that doesn't brag because their last name is on 3 buildings. The wedding was to be a black tie affair at the Manor House at 12 Oaks, a $12,000 per night venue with fountains, imported Italian marble floors, and a wedding planner named Cosette who wore all black and whispered like she worked for the CIA. The guest list was carefully curated, 200 people, mostly family, friends, and the Tates' business associates. When the invitations went out, I noticed something strange. Mine was addressed to Emily Carter, plus guest. No mention of maid of honor or reading a speech or bridal party duties, all of which Jacob and I had discussed 6 months earlier when he asked me, over sushi, to be a big part of the ceremony. I chalked it up to a formality. Maybe they were just trying to keep things simple. Then came the bridal shower. I wasn't invited. Lauren said it was just a few of the girls, and apparently I didn't make the cut. I told myself it didn't matter. I had more important things to worry about, like the fact that Brian had been dodging conversations and making late-night work calls from the car. But the wedding was a chance, I thought, to feel normal, to put on a dress, drink some rosé, and pretend that I was still part of something stable. The morning of the wedding, I showed up early to help. Lauren's mother took one look at my navy blue dress and asked, "You're not wearing that, are you?" I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. Still, I smiled. I always smiled. The real blow came just before the reception. I was standing outside the ballroom talking with my cousin Ava when I overheard Cosette whispering with one of the caterers. "Make sure to keep the Carter woman at table 17, that's the overflow seating." I blinked. "The Carter woman?" Ava asked. I walked to the seating chart. There it was, table 17, all the way in the back near the restrooms. My name, just Emily Carter, no Mrs., no family of the groom, squished between two distant cousins who'd flown in from Tallahassee and barely remembered Jacob's birthday. I felt my throat tighten, but I told myself to stay composed until I saw the gift list. Aunt Martha had a clipboard. She was going over the high-value gifts, a thing Lauren's family did apparently to keep track. And there it was, written in black ink. Emily Carter, $500 transfer, no physical gift. That was the money I had wired directly to Jacob last month, when he said they were short on paying for the florist. He'd called me, panicked, said they needed help covering a last-minute invoice from Dahlia Bloom Floral, which charged them $100 for peonies and orchids flown in from Ecuador. I sent him $500 the next day without hesitation. I didn't even ask for it back. Now here I was, exiled to the bathroom table, talked about like an afterthought, labeled as the sister who couldn't even bring a gift. I found Jacob near the bar during cocktail hour. "Hey," I said quietly, "can I ask why I'm not sitting with the family?" He looked at me, actually looked pained, and said, "Lauren didn't think it'd be appropriate after everything with Brian." With Brian. I blinked. "What the hell does that have to do with your wedding?" He lowered his voice. "She just didn't want drama. Her family's been asking questions about your situation." My situation. I couldn't breathe. My marriage was unraveling. I was barely hanging on. And now I was a liability, an image problem, a stain on the Tate's perfect monogrammed napkins. "I helped pay for your goddamn flowers, Jacob." "I know, and I'm grateful." "Really? But Lauren," she just thought. I didn't let him finish. I walked out of that ballroom, heels clicking across polished marble, heart thudding like a war drum. My dress, the one I bought for $200 from Nordstrom Rack because I couldn't afford a new designer gown, suddenly felt like a costume, like I'd dressed up to play a part in a story where I wasn't even wanted. When I got home, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat in the dark. I opened our shared Gmail to look for the receipt Jacob had sent me for the florist. Instead, I found something else. A confirmation email from the Sundial Hotel in Miami, a boutique resort known for its rooftop jacuzzi and couples packages. The charge, $790. The dates, the same weekend Brian claimed he had food poisoning and missed Caleb's campus visit. There was a name in the confirmation, Hannah Wright. I stared at it for 5 whole minutes before I realized who she was. Hannah from accounting. The same woman who commented on Brian's Facebook with too many emojis, the one he swore was just a kid at the office. My fingers shook as I searched our email history, and that's when I saw them. Dozens of messages, photos, love notes. "You make me feel alive. I've never wanted anyone like this. When are we telling her?" And then, like a dam breaking, the tears came. It wasn't just Brian, it was Jacob. It was Lauren. It was the whole damn illusion. I'd given everything, time, money, loyalty, silence, and in return, I was disposable. Forget the wedding. That night, I buried my marriage. And for the first time in years, I started digging myself out of the rubble. I didn't cry at first. I just stopped talking. Not because I was trying to be strong or hold it together. I simply couldn't form words. The humiliation from Jacob's wedding clung to me like smoke, seeping into my skin, my lungs, my thoughts. I remember walking out of the venue in those damn heels, clicking like some wind-up doll across the driveway while a valet asked if I needed assistance. I just shook my head and kept walking. My car was parked 3 blocks away, because VIP parking was only for real family. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, fully dressed, staring at a crack in the wall I'd never noticed before. My phone buzzed with missed calls from Jacob and 2 voicemails from my mother that started with, "Emily, I know you're upset, but this isn't about you." I stopped listening after that. At some point, my sister Melissa came over. She brought lasagna, her version of a peace offering. She didn't say much. She just placed the glass dish on my kitchen counter, wiped a spot clean with her sleeve, and looked at me. "You need to eat something." I couldn't even smell it. My body felt foreign, like I was wearing someone else's skin. I hadn't eaten since breakfast, but the thought of food made my stomach coil. Melissa didn't press. She just sat on the couch and scrolled through her phone while I sat motionless, still in my navy dress, the hem now wrinkled and stained with champagne I hadn't drunk. I slept in that dress. The next morning, the numbness cracked just enough for reality to seep in. It started with a letter from the bank, notice of overdraft. Then came the credit card notification, $4,500 at Saks Fifth Avenue. I hadn't been to Saks in over a year. Then another charge, $200 for a rental car in Miami. Brian's name was on the account. The money trail unraveled quickly. He'd been moving money quietly, strategically. Small transfers from our joint savings into a private account he never told me about. Our mortgage was a week overdue. My checking account had $63.87. My emergency fund, the one I built for years, was gone, all while I was paying for Caleb's college applications and covering half the bills. He had let me keep believing we were in this together while he was busy building a separate life, one with boutique hotels, blonde accountants, and rooftop jacuzzis. I felt rage, not the loud, breaking things kind. No, mine was quieter. It sat deep in my chest like a stone. Every time I inhaled, it pressed harder against my ribs. But the real devastation, it wasn't even about Brian. It was about how familiar this felt. Because the truth is, this wasn't the first time I'd been pushed aside. I remembered being 16, working weekends at my dad's hardware store only for Jacob to get a brand new car for his birthday while I saved up for a used Honda. I remembered covering for Mom when she was sick, cooking, cleaning, making sure everyone was okay, and still being told I was too sensitive whenever I cried. I remembered getting passed up for a promotion 2 years ago because I took time off when Caleb had pneumonia, while a male colleague with fewer qualifications got the role. It had always been this way, me showing up, giving more, being dependable, and then being treated like I was disposable. And now, even my own brother had followed the pattern. I sat on the floor of my living room, surrounded by paper, overdraft notices, utility bills, insurance statements, and for a moment I wanted to just disappear. Not die. Not anything so dramatic. I just wanted to stop existing for a while, to rest somewhere quiet where no one expected me to hold everything together. Instead, I did something different. I opened my laptop. I pulled up my resume, the one I hadn't updated in 3 years, and started editing. It felt pathetic at first. I had a degree in communications, 12 years of admin experience, and still I was applying for entry-level roles. But I was desperate. I needed income. I needed independence, even if it was $18 an hour. 2 weeks later, I got hired at a small law office downtown. Nothing glamorous. I answered phones, filed paperwork, made coffee. But it was mine. My paycheck, my desk, my hours. I packed a turkey sandwich every day and parked on the street to save the $6 garage fee. And then one afternoon, while scanning documents into the office server, I heard a voice. "Hi, I have a 3:30 with Mr. Delaney." I looked up. And there she was, Hannah. Blonde, tall, crisp white blouse, designer handbag, air of someone who hadn't had to chase rent payments in her life. She didn't recognize me, of course. Why would she? But I knew her. Not from photos, not from emails, from the quiet ache in my stomach. The woman who took my husband. The one who laughed in messages while I stayed up late trying to make sense of spreadsheets and stomach aches and cold silences. I stared at her for a second too long. And then, for the first time in months, I felt something unexpected. Power. Not the kind that comes from revenge, not even from confrontation. It was the kind that bubbles up when you realize someone doesn't define you anymore. I smiled. "Mr. Delaney, we'll see you now." As she walked past, I felt a flicker, a tiny spark, that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't broken. Maybe I was just waking up. And I began to ask myself something I hadn't dared before. What would my life look like if I stopped being the supporting character in everyone else's story? That question stayed with me. It still does. The twist, when Hannah chose me. She walked into the office looking nothing like the woman from the photos. No beach waves or sundresses this time. Her hair was pulled back in a shaky ponytail, her blouse buttoned wrong, and her eyes, red-rimmed cautious, held none of the sparkle I'd once resented. "I'm here to see Mr. Delaney. I was referred by a friend. I think I'm being followed." I didn't say anything at first. I just motioned to the chairs and offered her a bottle of water. My hands trembled as I passed it to her, brushing against hers for a split second. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did, but she was too distracted to react. While she waited in the conference room, I stepped into the hallway, leaned against the wall, and took a slow, measured breath. That was Hannah. The Hannah Hannah Hutter from accounting. Hannah who called my husband B and told him she felt alive when they were together. Hannah who once sent him a picture of herself in a red bikini captioned, "Your turn." But this version of her, she was a shadow. Mr. Delaney went in and I tried not to listen, but of course I did. He's been showing up at my apartment. My phone keeps ringing at all hours. He's angry. He thinks I embarrassed him. Embarrassed him how? I left. He says I broke his reputation. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, shaking. When she came out, I stood. She looked at me for a second. Something flickered across her face. Recognition, doubt. Then I said it. My name's Emily Cotter, Brian's wife. Her eyes widened, and her jaw slackened just enough for the horror to register. She staggered back half a step. For a moment I thought she might bolt. But she didn't. She sank into the chair and buried her face in her hands. I didn't know, she whispered. Not really. He told me. He said you were just co-parenting, that you were cold, controlling, that he stayed for the kid. My mouth opened, then closed. How many times had I heard that line before? From friends, from exes, from the world that always made women like me into footnotes in someone else's story. But Hannah didn't defend herself further. She didn't posture or justify. Instead, she started crying. I thought I was his muse, she said. I thought he saw me, but then he moved me into that condo and I became a secret. He stopped taking me out in public. He hated when I spoke during dinner. He said my laugh was too loud. He said I made people uncomfortable. Something in me broke then. Not out of pity, but understanding. An awful full-body recognition of what it meant to be chosen for your light and then punished for it. So we talked. Not all at once, not deeply at first, but week by week Hannah kept showing up, sometimes for legal meetings, sometimes just for coffee, sometimes just because the silence in her condo was too loud. And then one night I told her about the wedding, about Jacob and Amanda, about the gift registry incident, about being dismissed like a bank account, a walking checkbook. She listened. Not like someone who wanted to fix it or offer platitudes. She just sat with it, held it, like it mattered. And I started to see her differently. Not the woman who ruined my marriage, but a woman who had also been lied to, gaslit, erased. We were both ghosts trying to stitch ourselves back into the world. Then something shifted. It was small at first, her hand brushing mine as we laughed about something dumb, her staying a little longer each time. Then one evening, I was walking her to her car when she turned to me and said, "You make me feel safe." And just like that, something snapped open in me, not in the way I expected. It wasn't romance, not at first. It was recognition. A meeting of two broken mirrors, finally seeing a whole reflection. Months passed. Then Jacob called. He wanted me to come to a family dinner, said things had cooled down since the wedding, said he'd love to clear the air. I was hesitant, but Hannah said she'd go with me if I wanted. So we did. It was Caleb's birthday, a modest backyard gathering. Mom made her potato salad. Dad was already 3 beers in. Amanda didn't look me in the eye. Halfway through the evening, Jacob clinked his glass and stood up to give a speech. "I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight, especially family." He glanced at me like he was offering some kind of olive branch, but it felt more like a pat on the head. Then Caleb stood. My sweet, introverted 9-year-old son. He was holding a folded sheet of paper and looked more nervous than I'd ever seen him. "I want to say something too," he said. He unfolded the paper with shaky hands and read aloud. "This year was hard. My dad moved out. Things got weird, but my mom stayed. She helped me with homework and made pancakes on days I felt sad. She got a new job and started waking up early every morning, even when she was tired. She always says, 'We'll figure it out.' And we always do." Everyone was silent. Caleb looked up, then added one last line not written on the page. "And she brought someone new into my life, someone kind. Her name is Hannah, and I like when she plays board games with us. She doesn't try to be my mom. She just listens." Amanda dropped her fork. Jacob turned pale. My mother's wine glass tipped slightly in her hand. And Hannah, she reached for my hand under the table and squeezed it. No performance, no drama, just solidarity. That was the moment everything changed. Not because of a grand reveal, not because I said anything clever, but because my son, my quiet, observant, deeply good son, stood up and told the truth in a way none of us adults had been brave enough to. After dinner, as people left in awkward waves of half smiles and muttered goodbyes, Jacob pulled me aside. I didn't know things had gotten that serious with her. "She's not a phase, Jacob," I said, steady. "She's the first person who's really seen me in years." He nodded. "You seem different." "I am." That night, I sat on the couch with Hannah and Caleb, watching some dumb baking show. He fell asleep between us. She rested her head on my shoulder. And for once, I didn't feel like I was surviving. I felt like I was choosing myself. Choosing peace, choosing love in its rawest, least expected form. Because sometimes the plot twist isn't revenge. Sometimes it's rebuilding. And sometimes, the woman you thought stole your life becomes the one who helps you find it again. Have you ever forgiven someone you never thought you could? Have you ever chosen a new version of yourself and let the old one go? I'd love to hear your story. The confrontation, setting boundaries, claiming power. The family brunch was held at my mother's house, the same faded yellow two-story where every holiday, every birthday, every forced apology had unfolded since we were kids. The house smelled like cinnamon rolls and denial. I came with Hannah. Heads turned. Forks paused mid-air. Amanda blinked like she was unsure whether I was a mirage or a malfunction in the family matrix. My mother clutched her pearls, literally, and my father stared at his coffee like it might suddenly rise up and explain everything. I didn't wait for someone to speak. I wasn't here to be welcomed. I was here to be heard. I'll only say this once, I began, standing in front of the living room fireplace, where graduation pictures and forced smiles lined the mantel. I'm not here for your approval. I'm here to set things straight. Jacob, always the self-appointed family peacekeeper, cleared his throat. Emily, look, we didn't mean to— No, I cut in. You don't get to start with, we didn't mean. Not anymore. I turned to Amanda. Her lip twitched. Guilt or arrogance, I couldn't tell. At your wedding, I said slowly, you asked me to contribute financially. $5,000, remember. You said it would help with the venue. You said you'd pay me back after the honeymoon. That was 10 months ago. Amanda's mouth opened slightly. Nothing came out. You also made sure my name was left off the main guest list. I continued. Do you think I wouldn't notice that my table card read Caleb's mom instead of my own name? My mother started to speak, some instinctive deflection probably, but I raised my hand. Not now, Mom. I turned back to the group. Do you know how that felt? To be treated like a sponsor, like a convenient placeholder, like someone who owes this family something no matter how you treat her. Jacob folded his arms, uneasy. We didn't ask for— Yes, you did, I snapped. Every time you let me be the responsible one. The fixer, the peacemaker, the one who'd show up with a checkbook and a smile, even while her own life was crumbling. I looked at my parents now, letting the silence stretch. You all knew about Brian, didn't you? A beat, no one spoke. I'm not stupid, I continued. Mom, you slipped once. You said something about his young friend being a phase. That was 4 months before he moved out. My mother winced, but didn't deny it. You knew, and not one of you warned me. Not one of you had the decency to ask how I was holding up while I was losing my marriage, my money, my mind. Amanda muttered, It wasn't our place. At our place. It was your family, I hissed, or so I thought. Then I turned to Caleb, who was sitting quietly on the sofa, watching with wide, careful eyes. And to be clear, I'm not doing this for me, not only. I'm doing it so my son knows what it looks like when a woman refuses to be used, when she chooses dignity over silence. I straightened my spine and addressed the room. I will no longer be your financial fallback. I will no longer attend events where I'm treated like an afterthought. I will not continue pretending this family dynamic is anything but toxic. My father finally spoke. So what, you're just cutting everyone off? I looked him square in the eye. No, I'm setting boundaries. If you want a relationship with me, with Caleb, you respect those boundaries. That means no backhanded comments, no gossip, no asking me for money or favors while pretending my life choices make you uncomfortable. He didn't answer, he just looked away. And then Hannah, who had remained quiet the entire time, stepped forward. She didn't make a speech. She didn't need to. She just took my hand. And in that small gesture, louder than any words, she said, I've got you. I saw something flicker in Amanda's eyes. Not envy, not contempt, but something deeper, recognition. Later, as we were walking to the car, Jacob caught up to us in the driveway. I didn't know it was that bad, he admitted. I know, I said, that's the problem. He shifted uncomfortably. Look, if you ever need anything. I don't, I replied. Not anymore. That was the difference. For years, I had needed this family's approval like oxygen. I'd twisted myself into knots to earn scraps of validation. I'd paid my way into their good graces and swallowed every slight just to keep the peace. But not anymore. Brian once said I was too much, too emotional, too intense, too independent when it wasn't convenient. But now I saw that I wasn't too anything. I was enough. Enough to walk away. Enough to start over. Enough to build something that didn't require me to shrink to fit. And as we pulled out of the driveway, Caleb in the back seat humming softly to himself, Hannah reached over and rested her hand on my knee. "You okay?" she asked. I smiled. "No," I said. "I'm better." Ending, choosing myself, living in the gray. I don't live in a big house anymore. I rent a 2-bedroom above a florist on Maple Street. The walls are thin, the heater rattles when it kicks on, but it smells like lavender in the hallway, and there's a bay window in the kitchen where I keep 3 thriving plants. That's new for me. Keeping something alive just because it makes me happy. I don't wake up dreading the day. I don't wait for someone to notice that I'm drowning. I light a candle in the mornings. I write in a journal that no one reads but me. I've learned how to sit with myself, really sit, and not flinch at what I find there. Hannah and I still talk. Not every day, not in a way that's easily labeled. Some days it feels like friendship. Other days it feels like something deeper, something raw and delicate and impossible to explain. But whatever it is, it's honest. There are no power plays, no manipulation, just 2 people trying to heal together but separate, entangled but not consumed. I used to believe that healing would look like a clean break, a dramatic exit, a victorious comeback, applause at the end, but it doesn't. Healing is slow, it's uneven. Some days I still get angry. Some days I grieve what I lost, not just the marriage, but the years I spent being small for the sake of peace. But then there are moments, quiet, defiant moments, where I choose myself. I chose myself when I turned down a birthday invite from Amanda because I knew it would drain me. I chose myself when I said no to lending Jacob money again. I chose myself when I stood in front of the mirror, touched my own face and whispered, "I forgive you for not knowing better." This year, I paid off $6,000 in debt. I built a little emergency fund. I bought Caleb a refurbished laptop for school with cash. I'm not rich, I don't have it all figured out. But I'm steady. I sleep through the night, I laugh more. I no longer flinch when my phone buzzes. And Caleb, he's growing into someone kind, thoughtful. The other night he looked at me from across the dinner table and said, "You seem lighter, Mom," like not floating away but glowing a little. I cried in the bathroom after that, not because I was sad, because it was true. And maybe that's what this part of life is about. Not big wins or perfect endings, but learning how to glow a little, even after the storm. I know some people would still judge me, some of you might too. You might say I should have walked away from Hannah, that forgiveness makes me weak, that boundaries should be walls, not bridges. You might say I should have fought harder for my marriage or hated more cleanly, more righteously. But here's the thing. Hate didn't save me, love did. Love for my son. Love for my dignity. Love for this messy, uncertain life I'm building. And yes, love, strangely and inexplicably, for the woman who helped me see the truth, even if she entered my story through fire. So, now, I live in the gray. Not in fairy tales, not in revenge fantasies, in real complicated, glorious gray. And I'll leave you with this. What if we stopped measuring our worth by the roles we're assigned? Daughter, wife, sister, provider, and started asking what our souls actually need to feel alive. What if we stopped letting other people define betrayal for us and started asking what healing really looks like? What if forgiveness isn't about forgetting, but about reclaiming your story and choosing to write the next chapter in your own voice? So I'll ask you, have you ever found something beautiful in the ruins? And if you did you let yourself keep it? Let me know. Maybe we're not as alone in the gray as we think.